Savings Bank, and I'm going to be the moderator today of our panel discussion. And I'm going to say a few words about the online application process versus the in-person application process. Then I'll be looking to some of my colleagues over here, Dave Eglin and Bill Brennan, both with First Trust Bank. They're going to talk about mortgages for properties that need some rehab, that need some improvement. That's a kind of a specialty area, and there's some programs that I'm sure you'll be interested in knowing about. Then they will be followed by my colleague on my left, and his name is Lane Keeley. He is a home inspector with Pillar to Post, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about why it's important to get a home inspection, and specifically if you're looking at properties that are going to need some rehab work, you definitely want to get a home inspection. He'll get into those things as well. Between each of these transitions, we're going to have time for discussion and questions. And I also want to introduce our president of Montgomery County Partners for Homeowner Shops, Carolyn Ferrante. And she is one of the many people who helped make this event possible today. I want to move now to that discussion about online applications versus an in-person application. I'm just curious, how many of you have seen the television ad now for Rocket Mortgage, press button, get mortgage? Okay. How many of you think it's really that simple? No hands came up. And rightly so. Is it impossible to get a mortgage that way? No. There are people that will do fine. If you're buying your third or fourth house, or you're an investor and you know how all this works, you probably can go online and get a mortgage and get through the system. But for those of you that are looking to buy the first time, I would really encourage you to seek out a mortgage professional you can sit down face-to-face with, have a conversation, and ask your questions. Because one of the problems is right now you don't know what you don't know. And so if you go and talk to an experienced lender, tell them what kind of properties you're looking for, they're going to help you figure out how much of a house you can afford. They will also be knowledgeable about the properties in your geographic area, not somebody out in the West Coast that's answering your online application. That mortgage professional can walk you through the process. They likely know the local realtors. And the other important issue when you're looking for a lender, you're often going to want to follow other people's recommendations, referrals. Where do those referrals come from? Your real estate agent, your friends. And the key thing here is if I refer you to Dave Eglin, I know Dave, I've had experience with him. But if somebody gets an online app and they say, well, I went to XYZ company and punched the button, and yeah, I had a great experience, do you think you're going to get that same person that they got? No, it's not going to happen. So if in the first time you're doing this, please don't be misguided by how it looks so easy. It can be easy. The job of us as lenders is to make it as easy as possible for you. But I assure you it's not just press a button and get a mortgage. Any questions about that before we start talking about some of the loans, about the mortgage application process? Okay, we're going to turn over to Dave and Bill, talk about rehabs.
All right, folks, thanks for coming out. We certainly appreciate you trying to get more information about the various programs and products and all that goes into buying a house. You know, buying a house is not like you go to the store and buy a box of cereal, so it's a daunting process. It's very challenging. There's a lot of nuances to it. And today we're going to focus a little bit on different housing, different loan types to help if you buy a house and maybe it needs some renovation. And my colleague, Bill Brennan, who is 203K, you may hear a term, this mortgage business, a lot of acronyms, Fannie Mae, Freddie, FHA 203K, that basically is a loan that you get when you purchase a property, and it includes renovation component already financed into the loan. So it's not like a traditional construction loan where you have to close and close again. It's a one-time closing. And we have some information that we're going to put on the screen here. But basically it's a loan for the purchase and acquisition and financing of certain eligible repair items. And I'm going to have Bill speak a little bit about what commonly we see when people come to us and say, okay, I found a house and it needs X, Y, Z. And Bill, if you want to maybe kind of go through what is and is not permitted to be financed in that program.
I'd be happy to. I'll kind of give you like the 30,000 foot view. The 203K, you purchase your house, you finance the repairs, all in the same loan. Need a licensed and insured contractor. You can finance up to 110% of the after improved value, which is nice because the house itself may not be able to appraise for all the repairs that you want to do on it. And it's only for owner-occupied properties. You can't use this type of program for investment purchases. You have two different types of 203Ks. You have a limited, which is basically cosmetic work that you're going to need to do on the property. Like you want to put a new kitchen in there. You want to put a new bathroom. You want to repaint walls, put new carpets in, or hardwood floors. That's the type of financing that's perfect for the limited 203K. The type of repairs is perfect for the limited 203K. You have a maximum of roughly $29,000 in repairs for the limited 203K, and you can get up to 2 draws. You get 50% of the money to start, and it'll help the contractor purchase materials, and that's going to be dispersed roughly 7 to 10 days after you make settlement on the property. After all the work is completed in the property, you'll receive the final check to pay the contractor off. Now, you do not need a HUD consultant on this program, which is nice because it's extra, it saves you some money.
What's a HUD?
The HUD consultant, the purpose is, he's kind of a facilitator.
Okay.
He's like your middleman between the bank, between the buyer, between the appraiser, and the contractor. His purpose is essentially to make sure that the repairs you want to do in that house all make sense, and that that house is capable of supporting all those repairs in terms of the value of the property.
Yeah. A HUD consultant would act again as a little bit of a defense between you and your contractor. And if the HUD consultant reviews your contractor's proposal and you're simply putting in a new bathroom and your contractor's saying it's going to cost you $25,000, well, the HUD consultant's going to look at that and say, I don't think so. You find another contractor, you have to have a contractor that's going to give you a reasonable work write-up, what is normal and customary for the type of repair or renovation that you're having done. You had a question?
Yeah, would this include septic remediation if there's a problem with the tank or anything like that?
If you're on a private well and or a private septic, there is a component of the program. We just talked about that, didn't we?
I believe you did.
Yeah, not for the installation of a new system, but there's opportunity to do repairs to an existing system. And again, if you want a little bit more information, we'll give you our contact information afterwards about that. So, Bill?
Now, on the limited 203K, these are the types of repairs that are allowable. Mainly cosmetic in nature. You get the new kitchen, new bathrooms, siding, carpet, flooring, plumbing, painting, on down the line. The only thing you're really not allowed to do with this is structural work on the property. So if you have to move a load-bearing wall, remove a load-bearing wall, then you have to go to what's called the standard 203K. It's the next level up. You want to do any kind of additions onto the property, this program here won't work. You would have to go to the standard. Now the standard 203K, similar to the limited, but you have a minimum of repairs of $5,000. Now there is no maximum as far as repairs. You can basically finance as much as the house is worth and as much as you qualify for. You have a maximum of 5 draws, and that's determined by the HUD consultant, how many draws are going to be needed and how much is going to be dispersed with each draw. But the contractor has to start work without any money. So if you would like to do this type of program, you have to find a contractor that's capable of self-funding at least the initial part of the contract work that's going to be done. A HUD consultant is going to be required for this program here, which is actually a benefit, especially if you're going to be doing substantial repairs, because, like Dave was saying, he kind of keeps the contractor in check. Now,
What's the cost for the consultant?
Consultants, they range, depends on the nature of the work. I've seen it from $800 up to $1,500 for a HUD consultant. Sometimes they charge fees to come out and actually do the inspections on the property as well. Depends. HUD actually provides a list of approved HUD consultants, and there's out on the HUD.gov website.
The good thing about the HUD consultant charge is that can be financed into your loan amount. So the HUD consultant may charge you $1,000 to administer the renovations, but that's an eligible charge. It can be financed as part of the overall cost of your repairs.
Now, if you find a property that's a shell, yes, question.
Does the 203 standard, is it only for if you're buying a new house or if you have an existing house? If you have an offer for a tenant person.
You can use it as, do you have a, if you've owned the house before, as long as you don't have an FHA mortgage on it, you can.
So it has to be paid for?
It would have to be paid for or sold. I mean, if you had a conventional mortgage on it and you're planning on renting that property out, and then you want to buy a new property that you're going to live in with the 203K, that's allowed.
Mhm.
But FHA doesn't like you to have two FHA mortgages at the same time. Now, if you do, if you're planning on purchasing, say, a shell, no walls or anything, complete, it's a foreclosed property, you know, you want to build it out to make it nice the way you want to have it done, you may need architectural exhibits to actually show the layout of the house itself. And the cost of that can be financed as part of the 203K. If you plan on purchasing a house and you're not going to be able to live in it while this work is being done, you can finance on a standard 203K up to 6 months of the total monthly payment. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and mortgage insurance all included. You can finance that as part of the standard 203K loan.
That's a good benefit, particularly if you're in a rental situation and you're going to buy something and you need a full 203K or standard. You can't move into it because there's no kitchen, the water's not hooked up. So that's a great opportunity to finance the mortgage payments into that new loan, so you're not paying both the mortgage on the new property you just bought plus your current rental. So that's a really nice feature.
Now, allowable repairs, it's everything that's covered under the streamlined 203K. And in addition to that, structural alterations, additions, reconstruction, remodeling, and you can actually do major landscaping work. If you add an addition on there, you need to regrade the property, you can finance the cost of the grading. Non-allowable repairs, you're looking at luxury items, like pools, hot tubs, crystal chandeliers, stuff like that. If there is an existing pool, that you actually can finance the cost of a portion of the repairs to fix that pool up. I believe it's a limit to $2,000.
Yeah, so if you have a pool and let's say it needs to have some tile work done to it, but it was existing, you can finance the cost to repair that. You just can't finance to put a new pool in, because they don't like you to do that for some reason.
Okay. Any questions?
Would you consider, I think it's awesome, changing from traditional hot water to tankless hot water? Would that be covered?
Well, that would be, that would be eligible depending on the scope of the repairs, probably under your limited at that point.
Mm-hmm.
The systems themselves, range, could be 1,200 to 3,000. You got to watch, and I'm not an expert on it, but it's a great opportunity. I have one up in the mountains, but certain homes are too old and you cannot retrofit the piped copper into the plastic stuff they have. So, but you could do that.
On the same line, how about oil to gas?
Yeah, we've
Okay.
done conversions of that before too. Sure.
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If someone already owns their house and it needs extensive work,
Mhm.
can they do this as a refinance?
Yes.
So it's their only mortgage?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Even if they have a conventional loan now or it's owned free and clear, they can refinance into a FHA 203K to pay for any deferred maintenance items, or they need replacement windows,
Or even
or
addition.
again, you want to convert to your, oil to gas or whatever like that. So it's not just for first-time home buyers purchasing, but also existing homeowners that have a property and may need to be in repair. Sometimes you see that particularly with the elderly. Husband died, and they kind of let things go a little bit, and if they have a little bit of an older house, they want to, the roof's leaking. How do I pay for it? And this is an opportunity for a refinance where they could do that. Yes.
Do you get it, do you have to go through HUD to get that, or do you go to any regular bank?
You need to find a HUD-approved lender and one that is eligible to offer 203K financing. Most lenders that are HUD-approved have the ability to offer it, but not all lenders that are HUD-approved will offer it because they don't understand it, and it's challenging for them as a lender as well. We just happen to have a lot of experience over the past 15 years doing this type of lending. So, if you call a lender and ask them specifically, they may say, yeah, we do FHA, but ask them, well, do you do the FHA 203K? And chances are they may say no. So.
And if they say yes, ask them how many a year they
Right.
do.
Exactly.
Just because they do it when they offer it to you,
Yeah,
doesn't mean that
It's a
they'll be able to
specialty.
guide you.
yeah.
It's a true specialty, is what
Yeah.
he's saying.
So two questions. What are the terms usually of a loan like this?
FHA offers a 30-year, which is what most people opt for. They do offer a 15-year,
Okay.
and they offer what's called hybrid arms. So they have a 5-1 arm, and I think
So these are all arms.
These are all fixed. I mean, we've never done a
I
2 or
don't think we've
3K.
ever done an FHA
No.
bond period.
Yeah.
We usually
30
typically do
30 to
15
25 to
fixed.
30 is what we usually see. Rarely you'll have somebody that wants to really pay it down into a 15-year. The reality is when they want to cram it from a 30 to 15, they normally then don't qualify because the payment's so much higher. I say if you want to do that, take the 30-year and just pay extra each month. So that's really the way to go.
On principle.
Do you also, I guess because it's FHA, you won't loan to an LLC, right? It has to be in a personal name.
Unfortunately, HUD will only lend under this program to individual guarantors.
So
So
let me give you this example. We do a mortgage through this, and after all the work is done, there's no prepayment penalty to pay it off if we wanted to
yeah, there's no
refinance it
there's no
or
prepayment
transfer it to
for
a
FHA.
different person or
So
entity.
there are, and again, stop me if I'm wrong, but there are requirements of how long you have to live in the property.
How about if it's a rental?
You wouldn't be able to do it on a
It's not
rental.
So you
eligible.
wouldn't be able to do it. So you
Owner
could use that
occupied.
loan to actually purchase the property, rehab it, rent it out, and then potentially refinance it somewhere else.
now that's more of a specialty product where you want to, if you have an existing LLC and you want to go out, you're basically looking for a commercial line of credit at that point
Okay,
for
so
acquisition.
commercial.
You
Okay.
fix them out and either you flip them or they blanket a couple of them and then they release them. Yes.
Thank you.
Is this only for detached or also for condos and townhouses?
It's eligible for single-family detached properties, row homes, townhomes, eligible approved condo projects. You know, you'd have a tough time on like a non-traditional transaction, which would be like a farmette, because you don't have a lot of comparables for that stuff. But most of your properties would be eligible for this, assuming they're zoned commercial. And speaking, if you want to just touch real briefly on the mixed use.
Say you have a corner grocery store. Grocery store on the first floor, apartments on the second floor. If it's in a predominant residential area, this program is perfect for them. The ratio of residential to commercial space is actually, it's more comparable. They're not as strict as, say, a conventional or standard FHA loan. Usually they'll allow 49% residential, or 49% commercial and 51% residential. So,
Yeah, you'll see this like in the city of Philadelphia a lot where it's in a, you know, you have apartments upstairs, but you have a beauty shop downstairs, a laundromat, and the property's zoned mixed use. It's still technically residential, but a portion of it's commercial. We do a lot of those on mixed use properties. And it's also available up to 1 to 4 units, so you could have a single family duplex, triplex, or a quadplex.
All right.
Is that all right?
This is not your last chance to ask them questions. We'll come back to them after we hear from our next speaker.
Thank
One of the persons I realized that I didn't mention, Carolyn, when I introduced you as our president, I didn't mention who you work with. It's Harvard Realty. She is a real estate agent, one that we all know and have worked with many times.
Mhm.
And so if you have questions that are more real estate related, that's why she's in this room, for that. We're now going to hear from Lane Keeley and from Pillar and Post, is to talk about the home inspection process.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Also, I want to thank you for coming today and taking time out of your busy schedule to come here and get a lot of good information. Hope it's been very educational for you. My name's Lane Keeley. I'm a certified home inspector and a franchise owner for an organization called Pillar to Post. Pillar to Post is the largest home inspection business in North America. They have over 500 franchises throughout the country, and that's who I work for. I want to answer a couple questions for you. One, why do you need a home inspection when you want to purchase a home? And two, what does a home inspector actually do? So first, for most families, individuals, unless you're Donald Trump, I'm sure everybody's heard of Donald Trump in the news lately. He's kind of yeah, exactly. Unless you're him or in his category, for most people, most families, purchasing a home is probably the largest financial decision you're going to make, if not, certainly one of them, if not the largest. And so because of that, you want to make sure you're making the right decision, and that when you buy that home, you're not going to have any significant financial surprises, after you move in. Anybody remember the movie
Money Pit.
Money Pit? That's it, with Tom Hanks. I love that movie. I love the scene where he's standing up on the second floor and he slowly sinks into the hole in the floor with the rug and he sleeps there overnight. You know, like most movies, it's kind of an exaggeration, but the concept's the same. you want to find out if there's any significant issues with that home before you actually sign the dotted line, making it permanent, and you're going to move in. So that's certainly, one reason, that's the most important reason to get a home inspector. We will take a good, hard look at that at a very reasonable cost to make sure there aren't any significant issues. If there are, we'll identify them, either large or small, so you know what you're getting into, and at that point you can decide what you want to do with that home.
And I'm just gonna interject.
Sure.
For when a contract's written, when you're purchasing a home, a lot of people know contractors and Uncle Joe is a plumber. It needs to be a certified home inspector. They're called ASHI certified. So home inspection is important, but they need to be certified. I just wanted to throw that
That's
in.
correct, yeah. What happens with that kind of situation, you get somebody who's not certified, they may try to do things where they can get some business out of it or so forth, so you have to be very careful that you get somebody who knows what they're doing.
Who
Yes, sir.
certifies the home inspectors? Who's that done by?
In this case, pillar to post,
Okay,
in
so
my
the
case.
company actually certifies it, okay.
Yeah, and then, I'm certified in the state of Pennsylvania. I can't do New Jersey or any other states, so you're certified in specific areas.
So you keep up to date on all the current requirements, the zoning requirements, et cetera?
Well, zoning, we don't.
Not necessarily zoning, I
Yeah.
mean, code.
Well, not code as well. We make it clear, we don't inspect the codes because codes are always changing. Each different townships have different codes and so forth. We'll do a general inspection that will cover most of that stuff, but we don't inspect to the code because of the changes and different codes that are out there.
That's our
Yes.
job, is to know what code is required in the township, and a lot of times we relay that to the
What do you mean,
inspector.
your job as a realtor or as?
As a
okay.
realtor.
So the realtor should know all the current codes that are happening within that specific area or
And
house,
they do, they
and
change
then
all
be
the
able to
time.
relay that to the, okay.
Yeah. So we try to keep informed with all that, but we want to make it clear we're not going to do it to code because they're changing so constantly.
Sure.
But the changes, the codes are there. They're gonna have minor changes. For the most part, we'll make sure that everything's in good shape. So, secondly, what does a home inspector do? Certainly, when you're gonna have a home inspection done, you're gonna want to be there with the home inspector and go through the house with him if at all possible. And that's certainly how I would want it, or any home inspector should want it. That way, I'm explaining what I'm doing to the buyer, and they can ask questions and about anything I'm doing and make sure everything's understood, going forward. What I like to do, the key to any good home inspection is the process. You want to have a good, consistent process so that you don't miss anything. That's key. That is critical. And so what I like to do, I look at the home from a distance, and from that I mean like outside the far inches of the boundaries, make sure everything looks good. And then I'll move in to the home and go do completely around the whole perimeter, looking at the siding, the windows. If you're doing a termite inspection, we'll look for that as well. We'll check the AC system, the deck, the roof, all the outside exterior siding and so forth, and make sure that it's in good shape. And if not, certainly then that will be in the report. Then we move inside, and I like to start in the basement. Well, we'll look at the furnace, take the cover off the furnace, take a look at it. We'll run the furnace, run the AC system. We'll take the cover off the panel, take a
It's
look
cool
at that.
enough.
If it's
In the winter, you don't know if your AC
that's
is
true.
good.
In the winter, if it's too cold, we won't run the AC because we don't want to damage the compressor. But then we'll go inside and look at the furnace, like I said, run all that equipment, look at the panel. If we'll take a look for the foundation, if it's visible, wherever parts are visible, the structure itself, and make sure everything's good. To me, one of the keys I always look for is water issues. So we'll look for staining, effervescence, which are the salts left behind from any water stains and so forth. And do a thorough look, again, doing a perimeter walk all the way around, checking the walls, the foundation, the floors, as well as the ceiling, looking for any obvious defects that we need to note. And then you go up to the next floor and do the same thing. Go to each room, check the perimeter walk, looking for water stains, checking outlets, appliances in the kitchen, and everything involved. Again, windows, things of that nature. Yes, ma'am.
If water stains have been painted over, which usually people do
Mm-hmm.
get over, because that happened to me, The inspection that you're saying where you have a light that detects salts, would that even show?
Well, what we do have what we call a moisture meter, which we can use if we have any indication. You can either do with a surface contact or points where you can go into like a drywall or something. And we also have an infrared camera that we can use that can detect, it basically measures temperature differences. And so if you have a water stain that's fairly recent, we can identify that by temperature differences. If it's an older stain, that's going to be very, very hard to identify, especially with a visual inspection, which what a home inspection is. But typically, most of the time, there's going to be indications that there's been a problem. And so, lots of ways to identify.
It kind of kills paint right there. Gotta watch that.
If you're ever gonna do a rain dance, do it on the day of your home inspection.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
better
Yeah.
condition.
So, it's not 100% perfect, but there are always indications that there's been something there. I mean, if they repainted that, it's going to be a different shade than everything else if it's been recent. So there are indications of something being done, and I look for that, and most inspectors look for that to make sure there aren't any issues. And then the same thing, we'll go to the next floor, we'll do that on every floor, do a perimeter walk of the whole room, check all the outlets, all bathrooms, check all the running water. I like to run water and leave it running for a while. That way, if there are leaks of piping and so forth, that's going to show up after a bit of time. So I like to do that as well. And then another key point is to go into the attic. That's really the best way to see if you have any issues with your roofing. Looking up in the attic, see the structure. Again, look for water stains and everything else. Look for the structure. You again look for carpenter ants and that type of thing up there. Any indication that there's any issues with the roof itself as well as the attic, proper venting and so forth. And after that, then we have a final meeting, go over summarize the parts that we found, both major and minor, and taking photographs along through the whole way, which are then included in the report, and then the process is finished.
I'm just gonna, on that tail end of that, if whoever you're working with as a realtor, if they see in the inspection report and they say, oh, well, that's, code's gonna call for that, don't ever count on code to catch something that was already discovered. Always use that as part of your reply to that inspection. Just because code is supposed to find it doesn't mean they always will. So don't rely on code inspector might have had a really good night the night before and everything looks good today. So I just wanted to throw that in.
That's a good point. And what I know from the code inspector, I know a little bit about, is that they don't go into the depth in terms of what we do relative to running equipment, taking panels off your electrical box and off the furnaces and so forth. A lot of them don't go into that level of detail, so they're not going to see a lot of stuff they will catch. I think, yes, ma'am.
Well, as far as passing inspection, does it have to be every single thing on the list, or is it like a percentage, or?
There's no pass-fail. It's not like school. It'd be basic.
Because I know with the grant program, they said something about it has to pass for inspection, so I didn't know if there was certain things.
They actually do their own inspection.
Yeah.
Okay,
They do their own inspection. And that's mostly safety items and your big tickets.
Okay.
If you have a leaking roof,
Right.
that grant, they're gonna want the seller to fix that.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that it's dead, it
Right.
just means that there's still more to negotiate.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Recently ran into a situation where the drywall needed to be replaced just for aesthetic reasons. You know, it was old, it wasn't smooth, etc. Took it off, realized the entire house had no insulation. How do you find, you can't go to a house and poke a hole in the wall and check if there's insulation. How would you find that before purchasing the house?
Well, the basement and attic as well. I mean, you're probably, if it was all finished, it's going to be very difficult. You can tell sometimes by a lot of finished homes, you'll have the gap between the wall and the actual drywall. If you can somehow find in the closets and so forth and take a look at that, you can take an indication. But if it's covered, thermal.
You should be able to on a certain temperature outside
Well, if
days.
it's
Yeah.
dinner today, that really doesn't work.
Exactly, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, it has to be there.
And in that case,
Temperature gradient.
it's gonna be very difficult to be
Well,
honest.
which is a very expensive surprise.
Yeah, well, and that's a rarity, I'm sure. I mean, I can't imagine no insulation.
1950s houses, I beg to differ.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
I
depending
know
on
we
the
have
age.
certain builders around here, right? that-
Well, yeah. So,
Exactly.
but
You have to
with
be careful of.
visual inspection, it's difficult because we can't do destructive
Give them a hole in
testing.
the wall.
Yeah, yeah.
Every now and then it'll break out as kryptonite, but it's
Yeah,
not
I
good
know.
enough.
I like the magic dust, that works well.
Right, right.
So,
So basically, it's,
You have, well, again, there are usually indications of something amiss. I mean, you can knock too, do the knocking, and if it's hollow sound, or you know, if some of the face plates aren't on.
Sure.
Every home, I'm missing busted face plates around you can look behind and see. Attic and basements are always good places. If it's missing there, you know, it's probably gonna be missing everywhere else. So there are indications, but there's no guarantee with non-destructive viewing on an inspection that you're gonna catch something
sure,
like that.
thank you.
How much are you pushing for radon tests, especially in our area here?
Well,
Are you getting high
I
demand for that?
recommend it on every inspection because of the proximity of the uranium line going up by up further north, you know, in that area, and it's pretty prevalent around here. You know, radon, because if it's a known carcinogen, I just think it's wise to determine whether or not it exists in any home that you buy in this area, especially southeastern Pennsylvania. It just makes a
Right.
lot of sense.
I'll follow up on that. So it is very important. It will kill you. But from a negotiating point, if there's radon in the home that you're about to buy, it's better that you know it and have the seller remediate it, as opposed to when you go to resell that property of finding out that you had radon the whole time and you have to pay to get it fixed.
So maybe even better if you look at a home that's been remediated already and has a system already
You
in
still want to
place.
test for it, because just
That's
because
probably
that
a lot
level
better.
shows good, sometimes those fans are broken and it's worth $100.
Absolutely. Okay, fair enough. Great, thank you.
And if there is a system, try to check it and make sure it's running properly. It should have the gauges on it and showing the pressure change.
Is that required by any of the mortgage lenders now, any of that's
Radon's not
done?
required.
Radon is not, okay. But a home inspection, I think, for some mortgages is required or not? It's not?
No.
Not usually? Okay.
FHA, you still need a termite survey.
No.
Sometimes,
Interesting, okay.
yeah, PHFA, that's it.
Yes, sir.
How much does a home inspection cost?
It depends on the square footage of the home. 2,000 square foot is 275 to 300. You know, and inspectors vary in cost, so I would always recommend to call, get 2 or 3 estimates from people, and make sure that, you know, you're comfortable with that individual as well as the cost.
I say, be comfortable with the individual, because your cheapest home inspector may not be your best. Be comfortable with the quality of service that you're gonna get, because it's the most important part of the process, really.
So this has to be done before we make an offer, right?
No. You make an offer,
Okay.
and then you start investing your money. You pay for your inspection. We get through the inspections. If we come to terms with any flaws that are found, I always ask for everything. We usually get the important things. And then after that, then you're gonna keep spending money on an appraisal. It's a process, a little bit at a time. That's the first money you're truly gonna spend.
So then we can, so suppose there are more problems, we find out, we can always go back on the offer, right? And say,
At that point, the inspection, you're usually protected by 3 areas. Your mortgage, if anything should fail with your mortgage, you get your deposit money back. Inspections, if you don't come to terms, typically I always ask for 15 days, whoever you're working with. It says 5, 10, standardly. You want extra time to absorb the report that you're getting, extra review, and then if you can't come to terms, you get your money back.
You can build that into the contingencies of your offer, right?
Yes.
So whatever you offer in the house, you may look at the house and go, you know what, I really want that inspected. You can build that into the contingency in your offer, and then if they don't meet it, you can back out.
That's a good place for us
Okay.
to wrap up. Well, thank you very much, Lane. Appreciate. Are there any other last-minute questions or things that you didn't get answered here that you want? All of us are, of course, available to talk to you
I
afterward.
just got a text from one of these good folks. They asked if the 203K, can you finance appliances?
What's the answer?
Yeah, that's a good, thank you whoever sent that to me. If you do your 203K, yes, and you need new appliances.
Can't do furniture though.
Can't do furniture, but you can do your microwave, you can do your stainless steel oven, refrigerator, all that good stuff. That can all be included in the cost of your renovation, so.
Cabinetry? Is it attached to the house?
Yeah.
All right.
Folks, thanks for your time. Any
Thank you.
questions?